Ladies and gentlemen, listen to this really important clip that Alex Karp brings on CNBC today.
Look, what I don't like about what's going on is I just view this as, well, let's watch the Democratic Party commit suicide. And like, I've been a Democrat most of my life. I kind of view myself as outside it, but I don't like watching the Democrats just commit suicide. And what I see is most of the country doesn't really, at this point, given the fraud, waste, and abuse we know is there, 90% of the country is like, get rid of that fraud, waste, and abuse. And I just view this as yet another example of the progressive left boxing themselves into a suicide dance. Now, what the progressive left should be doing is saying, okay, Elon, you're clearly the most qualified person in the world to do something like this. We want to dialogue with you about how you're doing and what are you doing. I don't believe that's actually what happened. And again, I like Elon. I know I think he's obviously the most important builder in the world. And I just think, if you want to say my former side, I don't believe that they're actually engaging. I think it's like another dance where I'm supposed to say, of course, like whatever. It's like there's this one issue where I might, and then you get boxed into you cannot solve the problem. And then I would say, what is the biggest problem in this society? Biggest problem in this society, from my perspective, is legitimacy of our institutions. Why aren't they legitimate? They're not legitimate because, okay, do any of you really believe that 99% of your taxpayer dollars are being spent? But last and not least, and probably arguably most importantly, there's two revolutions happening. One is transparency and one is AI. Okay, so why is it that we do not know where every penny of our money goes? Like, how do you explain that to people? And by the way, slightly more technically, what large language models do is you can go into the contracts and see exactly what happened. So in the past, we couldn't do this. Now we can. The right response is, we want this to happen.
Wow, some very powerful statements coming from Alex Karp right there. But a lot of things he's saying, I think, is a big legitimate concern. The fact that we are seeing the Democrats that appear to be kind of boxing themselves into a corner because a lot of the Americans are looking for transparency. That's exactly what Doge is doing, saying that's one of the biggest problems that we have right now is legitimacy. And the revolutions that we're seeing are transparency and AI, and that can help improve legitimacy across not just the federal government, but across a lot of different institutions in America. So very powerful statement there. You can see a key leader, and Alex Karp has always been a great representative spokesman as the CEO for Palantir. And key leaders and founders are really important in some of these newer tech stock companies, and especially with Palantir climbing very high. Now, looking at the price right here, where does Palantir close? You can see celebrating another all-time high at $124 now per share, up about 5%, including the after hours and the overnight hours on Robinhood. Palantir right now is currently sitting at $124.40. Talking about from a technical basis here, Palantir is continuing to be in a price discovery type of mode. We see a lot of institutions that are continuing to accumulate and retail investors on top of that pushing Palantir and increasing its momentum to these new higher highs. The question is, how high will Palantir go until we do see a little bit of a correction? The world may never know, but that could be coming at any time as the risk for downside potential does increase as Palantir does increase in price. One big thing that we are seeing for Palantir, two of these companies that are starting to interact a little more together, and that was Elon Musk that had posted this clip originally on Alex Karp, and now talking about Elon Musk and Palantir, Tesla working together a little more. And we're starting to see Elon Musk that has been reposting things from Palantir. And now Palantir has brought Grok to the enterprise, now officially available in AIP. Elon Musk even reposts here saying a Grok 3 coming soon, which is the next upgrade to the large language model. So the fact that you're seeing more of a relationship being built here, I think is incredibly important, especially as Alex Karp said, one of the most important builders in the world for the accomplishments that Musk has done. So why is Palantir continuing to rally here? Some people are talking about more different types of funds that are getting involved with Palantir. This Yahoo Finance article specifically talks about a regulatory filing that dropped last week. I don't know if some of you guys saw this. We talked about it briefly a few videos ago. Revealed that the teacher retirement system of Texas in the good old Lone Star State, one of the largest pension funds in the country, actually in terms of size, had added Palantir to its portfolio during the fourth quarter. Now, to be clear, they say here's a modest investment of about 521,000 shares. That's still a pretty big, decent position with a stake worth about 62 million, comparing to about 210 billion in the total funds holding. But what you can see here is these large funds are starting to put Palantir into their portfolios, and Palantir is continuing to climb to the top of the headlines. One thing also, in addition, as Palantir stock soars past 120, you're seeing some possible stock split speculation. Now, this is all speculation. None of this is, 100% going to happen or anything like that. But they talk about here, as the market cap is currently growing, now at 283 billion, about a potential stock split to make shares more accessible. And for people that are kind of newer into the market, a stock split is basically just dividing, increasing the amount of shares of the current shares that are currently out there. So if you have one share, now that can become 10 shares, making the price 10 times cheaper, dividing it by 10. Basically, it makes it more attractive to buy kind of whole share stocks and just shares within the company for people that are looking in or seeing Palantir that's continuing to rise in price. Now, typically for stock splits, we don't typically see a lot of splits occurring for some of these bigger stocks until it hits about $1,000 per share. Why they're talking about speculation here is kind of talking about for the employees that are actually holding stock-based compensation from before 2024. They now have large holdings and positions in terms of actual market value for their Palantir shares, the substantial paper gains, these unrealized gains. This situation can influence the timing of a potential stock split because smaller share denominations might help employees manage their equity positions more effectively. And I can kind of see that perspective where that speculation could come from is basically be saying that, if they want to sell off a little bit of stock, they can do more in a more precise incremental level rather than having to sell off these larger positions of shares, doing that in smaller denominations. That would allow them to hold the majority of Palantir if they wanted to take smaller profits kind of throughout the way. Now, what's happening in the market? We see the S&P 500 setting a fresh record as stocks rally into the close. Looking here at the markets, the broader indexes, NASDAQ's up only about 0.07%, S&P up about 0.24%. So basically kind of consolidation on the day, closing slightly in the green. We see energy, that was a good performing sector in the S&P right here, rising up about 1.9%. And we're seeing some pullbacks actually in the consumer discretionary and 1.2% for communication services weighed on the broader market. Right now, we have this quote talking about how overall the market's trying to beat out kind of this consolidation that we've been in since early December. That's true. If we've seen kind of the 3 months charts on the total markets in the broader indexes, we've seen some consolidation, not moving a ton, slightly in the green. But looking at here, this week is really kicking off a retail portion of earnings seasons. We're going to see a lot of stocks that will start to release their earnings reports. And much of last week's advance, remember, came after Thursday, after Trump had said the plan for reciprocal tariffs on countries with levies on U.S. goods, basically saying, hey, if you're going to charge the U.S. To bring goods into that country, then, hey, we're going to charge you. Just kind of eye for an eye there. Talking about the Federal Reserve, we don't know what they're going to be doing. We'll be waiting for the remarks on what they're going to be kind of pinpointing for interest rates for the next decision, if they're going to cut it or hold it steady. I think the market right now is pricing in basically about them holding it steady. But talking about more in the headlines, possibly reversing course next year as inflation possibly becomes a 2026 story. We're still very early into 2025, so let's not throw inflation completely out the roof. That's the way I'm looking at it right now, or out the window. That being said here, reflecting asset values, inflationary decisions, and basically how the reaction is going to be regarding interest rates is going to be incredibly important throughout 2025. Looking at NVDA, we're seeing them doing well, continuing to do well, holding at about that 140. NVIDIA's at 139 right now. They're going to be having their earnings heading relatively soon here in February 26. February 26th is next Wednesday, so about a week from now. Possibly could NVIDIA get a push up past that 140 resistance point that we've seen it hit multiple times. Other than that, looking at some of the other stocks that we've talked about, Tempest comes down about 8% today, cooling off a little bit. It's been on a big run up, along with Big Bear. It's also been on a very large run up, seeing a little bit of sell off here. This is not necessarily bad because these stocks have accumulated at a very high, rapid pace. So, peace out. Take care. I'll catch you guys later. What do you guys make of these remarks from Alex Karp? And where do you see Palantir going here in the near future? Have a great day.